want it in D?
No, D is fine.
Okay.
And then E for Shema as well.
E for Shema, okay.
And Michamocha, I might do that in Nusach just to keep the pace going.
Okay. You don't want to do the roof, right?
No, no.
Okay. You got it.
Sir.
Of course, thank you. Let me know when you want me to show this.
Is everything something malfunction? Page 371. Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Be'emunah Shelema, Be'emunah Shelema, Beviat HaMashiach, Beviat HaMashiach ani מאמין, ואף על פי שיתממח
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As we do often in the Jewish calendar and the cycle of our year, we balance opposites. So we're holding the joy of the Sabbath, of a beautiful, beautiful spring day, of an amazing bar mitzvah tomorrow, along with the memory of the Shoah. Some of you may have joined with us on Wednesday evening as we commemorated Erev Yom HaShoah communally at Temple Israel. We also wanted to be sure to give a moment that was for our own home community. And so I invite up now to assist me in the kindling of these 6 Yortzeit candles anyone in our community who has a direct legacy to the Shoah, survivor of a family. We all do, we know that, but some of us more direct than others. I can see a few of you here now. Come on up. Liz, for sure, you come up.
In memory of the 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. May the memory of the righteous be for a blessing.
Zichronam livracha. And we'll kindle the lights in silence, but definitely encouraging you over the course of the evening. Perhaps one of these individuals up here, you don't know their story or their connection. Be sure to ask them at the oneg afterward.
המשיח אני מאמין, ואף על פי שיתממע עם כל זה אני מאמין.
So with a continuing sort of focal point on these 6 flickering flames, our sermon tonight will happen with a series of installments from Jerusalem. Perhaps you saw some of them from Meir. They're rich and deep, and even if you watch them once, they're worth digesting over the course of the evening. And so we'll keep with that theme of remembrance and legacy, and then we'll do what we always do. We lean into joy, and we lean into simcha and purpose and the future. And so with that thought in mind, I call up all the Goldmans, with Sam at the head, to kindle the lights of Shabbat. We are on page 2. Such a gesund crowd. And you were so much younger when I saw you together last. Not the weekday and festival. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu Shel Shabbat. Amen. Now you're all warmed up. You ready? Okay. See you again at Kiddush and Motzi.
We turn to page 12 as we begin our journey through the Psalms to welcome the Sabbath Queen, Lechu Neranana, Psalm 95. Lechu minor. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria, naria letzur yishenu, nekad mafanav betoda. Naria, naria letzor yishenu, bismirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Page 13. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruchu shemo, basru miyom liyom, yeshuato. Sapru v'goyim kevodo, bechol ha'amim, niflotav, ki gadol Adonai, umchulal meod, norahu al kol Ki kol Elohei ha'emim elilim, va'Adonai shamayim asa, hod v'hadar lefanav, oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho. Yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim.
At the very bottom of the page.
Yismechu hashamayim. ותגל הארץ, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלואו, ירם הים, ירם הים,
השדה וכל אשר בו, אז ירננו כל עצי יער. לפני אדוני קיווה לשבות הארץ, ישבות תבל בצדק, וימים באמונתו. Page 14. אדוני מלך תגל הארץ, ישמחו יהים רבים. אוהבי אדוני שנאורה, שומר נפש אור חסידיו מיד רשעים יצילם. אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה. Bottom of 14. אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו, לזכר קודשו. אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה. אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה. Top of page 16. זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה. 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 בחצוצרות וקול שופר הריעו לפני המלך אדוני. ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושבי בה. נהרות ימחה וכף, יחד הרים יהרננו. לפני אדוני קיווה לשבות הארץ, ישבות תבל בצדק, ועמים במישרים. Page 18. מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני בנעילים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדר הקודש. קול לאדוני על המים, אל הכבוד ירים אדוני. מים רבים, קול אדוני בכוח, קול אדוני בהדר, קול אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון, וסיריון כמו בין רעימים 19. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני חלל איילות, ויחסוב יערות, ובהכולו כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני למבול ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
Page 20, we've come to L'chadodi, really transitioning through the week, through our counting Omer days, through our seasons of joy and sorrow. The point of L'chadodi is to help us shed whatever dust is on our shoulders, so at that last verse we can stand and greet the bride and take that deep, sweet Shabbat breath. Top of page 20.
לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור ודיבור אחד, ישמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם לסופה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5, התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף קומי אורי, אורי, אורי. שיר דברי כבוד אדוני, עלייך נגלה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Please rise. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 9, בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
You may be seated. We're at page 22. Do you feel a little stirring? You feel like you woke up a little? That's the point. Prayer is actually an athletic activity. 2-2.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך ושמך עליון. At the bottom of the page, צדיק
The indented paragraph.
אמר יפרח כארז בלבנון יזכה שתולי בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו אור ינון בשיבה דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד ישר אדוני צורי ולא
So, in the first installment of these 4 very short video moments, we'll join Meir on the screen in just a second, and he's taking us to Yad Vashem, where he was earlier this week. Specifically, the first moment will be at the Children's Memorial. For anyone who's been there, it's unforgettable. You enter into almost like a cave, and you will hear the name of each child, their geographic location, their age, and it's just a few candles, but they're mirrors that are used, so you feel like you're standing in the middle of the Milky Way. Okay, Jason, whenever you're ready.
Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The light of God is the soul of man. From Proverbs chapter 20.
One-year-old Lithuanian. Moshe Levine, 3 years old, Lithuanian. Lotnikov, 6 years old, Russia. Renata Reza de Goldberg, Ilio Moishe Tete Goldberg, Svenio Czechoslovakia. Miro Tamacznik.
Just a little taste, and we'll come back and continue our journey with Meir at Yad Vashem. We now rise for the Baruch Hu 28.
Yai lai 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 lai, 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 yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai
Page 30. 30.
ומעביר יום ומהביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה, אדוני, המעריב הערבים.
32.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו ויורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
34.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. נא לשבת.
Maybe 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם
אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Offering now a poem which is really a takeoff on the V'ahavta, a painful poem by Primo Levi. You who live secure in your warm houses, who return at evening to find hot food and friendly faces, consider whether this is a man who labors in the mud, who knows no peace, who fights for a crust of bread, who dies at a yes or a no. Consider whether this is a woman without hair or name, with no more strength to remember, eyes empty and womb cold as a frog in winter. Consider that this has been. I commend these words to you. Engrave them on your hearts when you are in your house and when you walk on your way, when you go to bed and when you rise. Repeat them to your children, or may your house crumble, disease render you powerless, and your offspring avert their faces from you. We move now to, from a moment, from really the valley of the shadow into a moment of redemption, or at least our hope for that redemption. 40, Mi Chamocha.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לך אנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכות ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה ליאנו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Moving now to our second video installment called Who is Older? Meir will tell us a story.
I'm right now standing in front of a very modest, humble memorial. It's for all of the children who perished. And I want to tell a little story, not a little story, an incredible story, of course, told by Rabbi Lau, Israel Meir Lau, the former chief Ashkenazi rabbi. On April 11th, 1945, the concentration camp of Buchenwald, which is in Germany near Weimar, was liberated. The liberators were the American Army, led by General Patton, and there was a rabbi, a chaplain, whose name was Herschel Schechter, like the Schechter school system. As Rabbi Schechter approached the entrance, he saw a heap of corpses, many dead bodies. He looks down into the heap. He actually sees two eyes open, staring at him. They're both kind of scared. Rabbi Schechter reaches down to help the boy out. He says to the boy, "Where's your father?" He says, "In the gas chamber." "Where's your mother?" "I don't know." "What's your name?" "Lulik." Lulik in Polish is sort of short for Israel. And then Rabbi Schechter says, "How old are you?" And the boy says, "What's it matter? I'm older than you." At which point Rabbi Schechter understands this boy's got lots of feelings and challenges. Rabbi Schechter says, "I'm a grown man, you're a boy, how could you be older than me?" And the boy says, "I bet you laugh sometimes and cry." "Not me. I haven't laughed, I haven't cried. So who's older?"
We continue on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu Shomreinu lechayim Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Ve'amidenu shomreinu Shomreinu lechayim Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha Baruch atah Adonai Haporei sukat shalom Aleinu Ve'al kol amo Yisrael Ve'al Yerushalayim.
The Shamru is on 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש.
Now moving to our third video installment, Rabbi Meir will take us to a place called the Valley of the Communities. It's just outside the building of Yad Vashem, an incredible spot, and he'll continue his story.
Hello, friends. We're now entering into a place that's called the Valley of Communities. For over 1,000 years, we Jews have lived in different communities around Europe. This incredible memorial at Yad Vashem tries to record the names of thousands of communities. I'm going to sit down in a moment. I'm going to tell you an experience of Rabbi Lau after he shared with Rabbi Schechter. Rabbi Lau said to Rabbi Schechter, remember, what does it matter how old I am? I'm older than you. And when Rabbi Schechter asked him how that could be possible, Shrulik, the boy of 6 years old or so, said, I have no tears. I don't laugh. I don't cry. But you laugh and cry. Therefore, I must be older because I have no tears. So I'm going to share a little story that Rabbi Lau tells. After he was picked up in his arms by Rabbi Schechter, this is on April 11th, 1945. Within a few weeks, 220 boys were put on a bus to go to a place called Écueil in France. And this is now the end of April of 45. And the boys lived in a sanatorium of sorts. And the person whose job it was who accepted this impossible and unbelievably holy task of helping these boys move step by step, moment by moment back to life, her name was Mrs. Mintz. And the boys came to love her and trust her because of her love and care for them. There was a day, end of April, maybe beginning of May, in which Mrs. Mintz gathered the boys together. And she said, boys, I would like you to gather on the main lawn at 4 p.m. because the mayor of Écueil and the police chief and the different leaders in the community and some of the people who make this place happen, they fund this place, they're going to gather. So I'd like you to be here at 4 p.m. And immediately one of the boys stands up and says, no, we're not coming. These people, they let our parents be murdered and just it was horrific what they did to our parents, what they allowed to happen to our parents. We'd have no interest in being connected to them. They want to fund public relations. Where were they when it mattered? No, we're not coming. This man said, well, you know what? There's actually going to be a gift for each of you. And inside the gift, inside the bag, you're going to see your name. It's going to have toothpaste and toothbrush and something sweet to eat. And the boy stood up again. No, we don't want your gift. We don't want their gifts. Who are we and who are they that we should want to help them? Mrs. Mintz said to the boy and to all of them, please, for me. He paused. The boys then gathered together. They came back to Mrs. Mintz shortly later and they said, okay, we will show up at 4 p.m. And they did. But what they agreed to was that when any of the people would come to the stage to speak, the boys who were sitting on the ground would look down at the grass. They would not stand up. They would not look up. They would not acknowledge a speaker. They certainly would not clap when any speaker was done. And that's what happened. Several speakers, one after another, after the next. Each of them, all they did, they got up and they said, because Mrs. Min said, keep it short, they said, young boys, we're here for you. We pray that you can begin to build your lives. We hope that you'll trust us, that we want to help you. And they sat down. And then the last speaker came and Mrs. Mintz announced his name. Mr. Leibovitz. And Mrs. Mintz said, Mr. Leibovitz will speak to you. He was born very nearby in the town of Lodz in Poland. And he had a wife and 3 children. They were sent to Auschwitz and they were murdered, and he's alone. And boys, I want you to know that Mr. Leibovitz decided when he had no one, that he would come back to France and see if his successful textile factory would still be operating. And he returned to the factory, and it is operating. And he's just committed that every dollar he makes, every effort he can is going to go to support orphans. Please, Mr. Leibovitz. And as Mr. Leibovitz came forward, all of a sudden the boys started to raise their heads. After all, he understood them. Mr. Leibovitz stood at the stage. He looked out at the boys. He was not much of an orator. He said 3 words. Kinder, children, dear children. 3 words. And he burst out into tears. He wept and he wept, Mr. Leibovitz. And then the boys began to weep. A minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, the boys wept and wept and wept. They had to wipe the tears from their cheeks. At which point one of the boys stood up and said, I rise and speak on behalf of all of the boys here to thank you. Not to thank you for this gathering, which we did not ask for. Not to thank you for the gift, which we do not want. But to thank you for the gift of tears. Mr. Leibovitz, you should know that for the last years, I have been beaten and starved and had no food, no clothing, no nothing, and I have never once shed a tear. And in the last 2 months, I've wondered, am I a human? Can I find a partner in my life? Can I become an Abba, a dad, if I can feel nothing? If the heart inside of me is more like a stone than a heart of flesh and blood? And so I come to thank you for giving me the greatest gift possible, the gift of tears. For I know now that the one who can cry today might be able to smile tomorrow.
We rise now for the Amidah, either in body or in spirit, but if you're able to stand up, we're on 46.
Adonai sevatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah. El Hagadol HaGibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Konei HaKol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ואימהות מביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. Page 50. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני בחיי הכל. Page 52. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Continuing on our own, seated or standing, the meditations on the page or simply the reflections of your heart. We'll meet up again in page 60 in just a few minutes.
Feel free to continue your private meditations at your own pace. You can also join me on page 60 for a plea for peace and wholeness.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tahasim Tahasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tahasim Tahasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tahasim Tahasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tahasim Tahasim Leolam. V'tov 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 Beinecha levarech et Amcha ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים תשים לעולם. שלום שלום
We move now to our prayer for healing, 253, Misha Berach. We'll be coming through to collect names. You can offer them aloud or just in your heart.
Dick and Debbie Coates, Barbara Greenfield, Frank Abrams.
Misheberach Avotenu Mekor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor habracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
So our last installment from Mayor, our last video installment. Jason, if you can hear me, remember this one's starting at about minute 3:45 seconds. 3 minutes, 45 seconds, if you can start it there. Thank you.
As Israel Mayer Lau, the rabbi, describes him. Before Haron stopped speaking at the sanatorium, he said, I want to tell you one more thing. When I was a boy growing up in Lodz in Poland, I would go with my grandfather and we would walk along the river, and he would test me in my Jewish knowledge. And He made me memorize many, 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 many passages from the Tanakh, from the Bible. But after 6 years of this life as under the Nazis, I forgot everything, except for one verse, one parak, one chapter of Ezekiel, which says that I felt the hand of God. Ezekiel feels the hand of God, and God says to Ezekiel, who's looking at a heap of bones, a heap of dry bones. God asks Ezekiel, will these bones come to life? Tichiena, will they come to life? And Ezekiel says, I don't know, God, only you know. And then a few verses later, Ezekiel hears God say, these bones will come together, they will form a body, and I will breathe life, the spirit of life, into these bodies. That's what God says to Ezekiel. And the Haron of Akui says to all the people gathered there, our bodies had come together. You at the sanatorium have helped our bodies. But you, Mr. Leibovich, and your tears have given us the spirit of life. And then Aharon sits down. Rabbi Lau says, I didn't know what happened to Aharon for 50 some years until I was at Hadassah Hospital in August of 2001 after a horrible suicide bombing at Sbarro's Pizza. And after I met with the doctors, the surgeons who were caring for the injured, the dozens of people who were injured in that suicide bombing case, four doctors were explaining to me what happened. And a man tries to walk by and asks us, Slicha, Yechol la'avor, is it possible that I can pass? And the four doctors and I, we parted, so we made space for this man to walk by. And as the man approaches me, he says, Rav Lau? And Rav Lau was silent. I'm Aharon. Do you remember me? And Rav Lau was lost his ability to speak, and he says, yes, of course I remember you. I remember every word that you said. And Aharon, filled with tears, walks away. The doctors had no idea what was going on. I explained to them that this is not just Aharon, the accountant for Hadassah Hospital. This is Aharon, who for me, Rabbi Lau, it's like a prophet 50 some years ago at the sanatorium of Ekwi. So Rabbi Lau concludes the story by asking a question. What was Hitler's goal? Was it just to murder as many Jewish bodies as possible? He says, definitely not. Hitler's goal was to destroy Judaism, to kill the Jewish religion, not just the Jewish people. And Aharon of Akui taught something so profound that one paragraph, a couple verses of the Bible, that's what kept him alive. Aharon told everyone there. I repeated these verses every morning for 6 years. These bones, dry bones that Ezekiel spoke about, God will bring them together and God will fill them with the breath, the spirit of life. And that's exactly what's happened here in Israel. But it's not just about the bodies, it's about our spirits. So we're left with a question on this Yom HaShoah, an invitation, a challenge, a prayer, that our Judaism really not be defined by the Holocaust, that the Shoah be not the central experience, Jewish experience of our day-to-day lives as Jews, as Jewish individuals, but rather that the learning, the growing of Judaism in our bodies and our minds and our souls and our spirits, that we challenge ourselves to learn and learn and learn. And one final thing, that the capacity to cry, that we open up those pipelines of tears of sadness and pain and loss, but also tears of joy and possibility of hope.
Rising now for Aleinu, we're on 282. Run, Shai, run.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגוהר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
And if you can remain standing, do so, because we're about to count the Omer. We're on 278. Go back just a page.
הנני מוכן ומזומן, הנני מוכן ומזומן, הנני מוכן ומזומן, לקיים מצוות עשה של ספירת העומר.
You can say the blessing together. Baruch
ברוך
atah
אתה
Adonai
אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת העומר.
We're at the 14th day, finishing the second week of Gevurah, in which we are to consider might. Hayom,
היום
Yom 14, Shehem Shnei Shavuot, LaOmer. Today is the 14th day, which is 2 weeks of the Omer. Even I can do that math. Woohoo! Okay, you may be seated. As always, it's been a service of memory in many ways, but we take a moment to recall personal losses within the community. If you hear the name of someone you have come to remember, please do rise when you hear that name and remain standing. This week marks the passing, just laid to rest this afternoon, of Lenore Miskin, and also this week of Edith Silverstein. And all those whose yortzites fall this week: Anne Freeman Bardner, Barbara Muskin Bardner, Odilo Burkhart, Ann Cooper Smith, Leon Dobbin, Anna and Heinrich Gluckstern, Phoebe Gozan, Seymour Gunnad, Martin Cohn, Irving Cursius, Lillian Cursius, Michael Levine, Siegfried Levy, Madeline Miller, Barbara Perlman, Helene Raymer, Max Tannenbaum, Frederick Weiss, Martin Weiss, Herb Weiner. And any other names to add or mispronounced? If it's your custom to rise for Kaddish, please do so. We're on 294. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו amen.
Amen.
May the one who creates peace and healing and wholeness on high bring that to all of us, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, to all humanity as well. We say one last time, amen. You may be
Amen.
seated. Announcements. Okay, Torah study tomorrow morning. I believe it's starting probably at 9, just 15 minutes earlier, online and in person. We also have a very special bar mitzvah tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. You'll get to see the family one more time for Kiddush and Motzi in just a minute. We have a whole slew of wonderful ones. So please come on Saturday morning and celebrate this amazing community of young people. Reminding us, Shed the Meds is this Sunday, 10:30 to 1:30. So if you put your medication in the garbage or, God forbid, down the toilet, it ends up in the water that we drink and in the streams. And bring it in. You can bring everything in. It's very efficient. You just drive through. It's down on East Shore Road. Any questions? Ask the Landsbergs. Raise your hand.
Don't want the fish and the frogs to have your meds.
Exactly. They should not be that happy. Okay. Tuesday, May 3rd, occasional midday. Midday music and meditation with Cantor, 2 p.m. online. On May 5th, we have adult ed. Do you want to say anything about that? Jewish communities in the Islamic world?
Well, there used to be a lot of Jewish communities in the Islamic world. And our speaker, Professor Emily Gottreich, Beneshu Gottreich, is a specialist in the former communities of the Maghreb, North Africa, especially from the Kingdom of Morocco. So she'll be speaking about that in particular, but also generally the treatment of the communities and the history of the communities. It's very rich and interesting and diverse. I'm not sure how she's going to fit it all into 1 hour, but she's spoken for us before, and she's amazing. So join us for that very special speaker.
So that's 7:30 on Thursday evening. A wonderful continuation of the Maimuna, which was such a victory, just bringing in some Sephardic flair to our understanding of Jewish life.
And celebrating our ancient Sephardic Torah.
Exactly. So also David Wolf is picking up Hebrew grammar. That's also on Thursday night. Rosh Chodesh, Sisterhood, May 9th. That will be the last one I'm officially leading. We're hoping to be outside and in person, 7:30. May 11th, Advocates for Social Justice, 7:30. If you're interested in that, please contact Sharon Ross. That following Friday, May 13th, we'll have members who are on the civil justice trip down south are going to be sharing reflections of that experience. So really encouraging. Just flag it in your brain, May 13th. Rabbinic Dialogue is on May 15th. That's Sunday morning, both online and in person. And we'll be talking about how we all struggle with the incredible high pressures of living in the Great Neck community. We all feel it, no matter what flavor of Judaism we are in. We are working to support a particular refugee family from the Ukraine as they relocate to Belmore. Stu Botwinick can tell you more if you're interested in helping them. Thanks to our Oneg bakers, Linda Diamond, Sandy Gretsch, Cheryl Silverstein, Roberta Lubert, Sharon Freeman. So Oneg in the atrium, a special mazel tov to the Silversteins on the wedding of their son this week, even marking the sorrow of a loss in your family, the joy and the pain together. And I think, yes, please.
I would just like to add for the memorial
Thank you.
As with so many, thank you for saying them aloud. And please, as I said at the beginning, if you notice the face of someone who came up here to kindle a light, take a moment to ask them their story. We have amazing stories in our community, tragic stories, but also stories of victory of the human spirit. So take a moment to find out more from those of our fellow community members. And we are going to call up the Goldmans for Kiddush and Motzi. We're on page 5.
ויהי רבעי בוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו, אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות צברי. בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו לעולם, המוציא לחם מהארץ. אמן. All right, let's conclude at the bottom of page 321 with the last verse of Adon Olam.
And let's rise.
בידו אב כדרוכי, והייתי שם בעירה, ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא. ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. בידו אב כדרוכי, והייתי שם בעירה, ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא. ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Shai. Thank you, Cantor. Thank you, Jason, with the videos. Thank you, Phil, for ushering.
No, I actually live in I moved to South Texas, so I'm trying to. That's a little pricey. It is, yeah. I was gonna ask. I'm really looking for blues teachers. For blues teachers? Yeah, I can't say that I know enough about blues to. I'm very serious about both. Around time, this guy, I want to play. Just want to start studying some blues. That's awesome. I love it. I do very serious ragtime classical stuff. Oh, that's awesome. I've been trying to. Although, yes, you know, once you conceptually get it, but still, there are tricks and tips and things that you learn, so you take some lessons. I was just curious. You're amazing.